Good evening, everyone. I call this meeting of the Council of the County of Lennox and Addington to order this Wednesday, March 18th at 6:30 p.m. Can I get an adoption of the minutes of our regular monthly meeting held February 25th, 2026? Councillor Davison, seconded by Councillor Fritsch. Any edits, errors, or omissions in those minutes? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. We have an agenda before us. Can I get an approval of the agenda as circulated? Councillor Wise, seconded by Deputy Warden. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof this evening? Seeing none, we come to the Warden's report. Can I get a motion to receive? Councillor Fritsch, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any questions on the report? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. We come to delegations this evening. Our first is the official plan amendment, and I'll call up Ms. Gelati.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I'm going to actually just turn it over to our consultant, Nick, who's online, who'll be doing a presentation, and then we'll both be available to take any questions afterwards. Thank you.
Very good.
Great. Good afternoon, members of council. My name is Nick McDonald of Meridian Planning Consultants. I'm here today to talk about the official plan review. I'm just going to share my screen. There we go. So the purpose of the presentation this evening is to provide an overview of the more significant changes being made to the official plan through the update process. You've already heard about these changes in my previous presentation. Provide an overview of the changes proposed to the official plan since the open house and public meeting were held late last year, and then in the end recommend that official plan amendment be adopted by County Council. There are four main components of the official plan update. They are growth management and economic development. There is a modification to the Napanee urban boundary proposed. The policies also include new direction and policies on natural heritage, and there are a number of other minor provincial planning statement changes that are also being accommodated as well. With respect to growth management, Watson and Associates were retained to prepare population, household, and employment forecasts for the year 2051, and to then carry out an urban land needs assessment in accordance with provincial policy and guidance, and their final report is dated September 23rd of 2023, or sorry, September of 23. With respect to growth management, to implement the study they prepared and other provincial planning statement requirements, a number of significant changes are proposed to the county official plan, and they're on this slide and on the next one. Firstly, the end of the planning period for the official plan will now be 2051 instead of 2036. The population, employment, and housing forecasts recommended by Watson Associates are being implemented. There are new policies included that direct local municipalities to do more and permit more intensification. There are updated criteria in the official plan on settlement area expansions. There are a number of new principles that support excellence in community living that are also being added. A new minimum density requirement for new greenfield development of 40 residents per hectare is being added. And greenfield development is essentially that development on the edges of existing urban areas. Permissions for 2 additional residential units on allotted urban serviced areas are being added as per Planning Act requirements. Many municipalities have already been permitting those already. The official plan also adds permissions for 2 additional residential units on lots in the agricultural area and the rural area designations and within rural settlement areas as well. The policies on how and where these units are developed will be subject to local official plan policies and zoning regulations. The minimum urban land supply required for residential development will be increased from 10 years to 15 years to reflect the current government's focus on housing. The policies on employment conversion are being updated in accordance with the provincial planning statement, and then new policies will require that a future amendment designate employment areas within settlement areas and potentially outside of settlement areas going forward. The tables on this slide are the tables included within the official plan that set out what the population, employment growth, and housing forecasts are by municipality. The Napanee urban boundary is also something we've been working on. The municipality of Greater Napanee approached the county and asked that the boundary be modified to incorporate a modest urban expansion on the west side. When we went through the process with them, we determined that there was also a need to consider taking off some of the land that is already designated for development, and this was at the request of the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, who wanted to ensure that the amount of land set aside in the Napanee urban boundary was appropriate and reflected an approximate 30-year supply going forward. The current Napanee urban boundary has an area of about 4,500 hectares, which is very large and would provide for many decades of growth. And this boundary was established at the time of municipal amalgamation many years ago and has never been reviewed. Much of the land in this boundary is designated urban fringe. And as I mentioned, requests have been received to expand the urban boundary by approximately 110 hectares to the west, where services have been extended and a new county arterial road is proposed to be developed. And because a settlement area expansion is proposed, it is proposed by Napanee to right-size the settlement area boundary so that it more closely matches up where development is envisioned. And as a result, about 1,395 hectares is coming off the table, which is about 30% of the settlement area. The third area we're dealing with through the process is natural heritage. And the current official plan anticipated that a natural heritage system would be developed in 2019. And in 2019, work on this project was initiated. This work was completed by North-South Environmental, and their report is dated February 2024. The natural heritage system policies are required to apply to lands south of the Canadian Shield, and you'll see on this map that there is a line, a zigzag line that goes through the township of Stone Mills, and it's below that line that natural heritage policies were developed. The report prepared by North-South Environmental reviews applicable policy, reviews existing natural heritage system strategies, identifies the process that underpins the development of a natural heritage system, identifies sources of information and gaps in the information, identifies the components of the system and discusses each in some detail, establishes criteria for significant woodlands, and then makes a number of recommendations on how components of the system should be protected and enhanced where possible. These are some of the sample maps included in their report. They're very comprehensive and identify where the wetlands, woodlands, and wildlife habitat, for example, are located within the county. With respect to implementing their recommendations, we are proposing to create one new land use designation and one new overlay. The new designation would be called Natural Heritage 1, and it would include significant wetlands and significant coastal wetlands, and development and site alteration would be prohibited in that designation as per provincial policy. The Natural Heritage 2 overlay would include significant areas of natural and scientific interest, woodlands, and wildlife habitat. And within this area, the no negative impact test applies. We're calling it an overlay because it sits on top of other land use designations. So the permissions are whatever is permitted underneath, subject to the policies of this overlay. Other components of the natural heritage system include watercourses, of course, other supporting features such as candidate areas of natural and scientific interest, candidate significant wildlife habitat areas, enhancement areas, linkages, and other wetlands. And this map is basically a screenshot of one of the schedules showing where the primary and supporting features are, plus enhancement areas and linkage areas from Schedule B3. The proposed new policies protect mapped and unmapped features, the latter if identified through a planning process. They provide direction on how the natural environment can be enhanced through the development approvals process, establishes criteria for significant woodlands, identifies the widths of adjacent lands, establishes minimum buffer widths outside of settlement areas, provides guidance on enhancement and linkage areas, encourages the transfer of natural heritage features into public ownership, sets out minimum requirements for environmental impact studies, permit the continuation of existing agricultural uses and natural heritage areas, set out how the policies are to be implemented by local official plans and zoning bylaws, and recognize applications in those areas that have already been approved but not developed, which is a common policy when new policies are being added. A number of other minor PPS changes are proposed, PPS standing for Provincial Planning Statement. The policies on servicing have been amended slightly. Permitted uses in the rural area designation have been broadened to clearly permit rural residential development in any form subject to meeting servicing requirements. The policies on cultural heritage have been updated. The land use compatibility policies have also been updated, and a number of changes to defined terms have also been made, where those changes have also been made in the provincial planning statement. So as mentioned at the outset, we did have a formal public meeting and a formal open house. This was at the end of a lengthy consultation process that involved other open houses and public meetings held in the years before. We received many comments from multiple agencies, most notably the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, who provided comments twice. Conservation authorities also participated. The health unit provided some very valuable comments. The pipeline companies and Indigenous groups also provided their comments. And we worked very closely with the local municipalities on these policies and worked to ensure that the policies met their needs, weren't overly restrictive, and provided them with the flexibility they need to implement them in a way that they feel is appropriate for the municipality. Some members of the public also provided comments. All of the requested changes have been considered, of course, and a number of changes have been made as a consequence, and I'll go through these now. Firstly, multiple changes have been made throughout to ensure the proper use of terminology related to cultural heritage resource preservation. Unfortunately, us planners work with a lot of defined terms, and sometimes defined terms keep on changing, and one change made in one area has to be reflected elsewhere, so we had to go through the document to ensure that all the defined terms were being used appropriately and in the right context. That took a bit of time. The Natural Heritage 2 areas identified in Schedule A are more accurately identified as an overlay. That was always the intent, but we made that very, very clear through the policy framework. Petroleum resource areas and areas of fire risk are now shown on a new Appendix A. This request to show these areas was made by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Enhancements have also been made throughout the document to support environmental sustainability and climate resilience where possible. And of course, there is a county report on climate change, and we did look at that and implemented that to the best of our abilities in a land use planning document. We've added policies that direct growth in settlement areas to be focused in strategic growth areas, and those are areas like downtowns, along major roads, major brownfield sites, and so on. A policy has also been added requiring that local municipalities have enough designated land in their settlement areas to accommodate expected growth to 2051. What this means is that when a local municipality updates their official plan, they need to look at their land supply to make sure it corresponds with the allocations of growth that the county plan includes. The policies on additional residential units have been simplified, and the implementation of these policies will be left to the local municipalities. A new Schedule E has been added that clearly shows the location of agricultural area and the rural area designations. I recognize that the county is also in the process of updating the location of prime agricultural areas through the Lear study, and is anticipated that this new Schedule E will be amended at the conclusion of that study with an updated areas of prime agricultural land in the county. Additional flexibility has been provided on how the buffer policies are to be applied to lands outside of settlement areas, and the policies applying to potential enhancement areas and linkage areas have been simplified and made more flexible, again, at the request of the local municipalities. And the policies that establish setbacks from watercourses have also been simplified, and again, through discussions with the local municipalities, in particular Loyalist Township. New policies on watershed and subwatershed planning have been added. Two of the previously created exemptions from having to do an aggregate impact study have been deleted. when new farm lots or a new lot for an agriculture-related use are proposed. Those exemptions were initially developed through Official Plan Amendment Number 1 in 2017, which established the aggregate areas in the county. The policies on karst topography have been updated. The policies applying to areas near pipelines has been updated, and new policies on climate change, as I mentioned, have also been added. Well, this is the end of a fairly lengthy process that began probably in 2018, was delayed through the COVID period for a number of reasons, and we've taken a few detours here and there, but we've come up with a very solid official plan that, in my opinion, is consistent with the provincial planning statement from 2024, and in my opinion, represents good planning. It also continues with the idea that the official plan at the county level is as strategic as it possibly can be, leaving the details of implementation for the most part to the local municipalities where that is possible. So I certainly recommend that this council adopt Official Plan Amendment Number 3 and send it off to the province for approval. And in terms of what happens after it is adopted, as mentioned, it does go to the province for approval, and they may make modifications as required. I don't think there will be any, but you never know when you're dealing with the province. And if there are any significant modifications proposed, we would come back to council and identify what they are and get direction from council on what to do with the changes that they've requested. As I indicated, I don't think that's going to happen. Once the province does make a decision, whether it's modified or not, the official plan amendment will come into effect with no appeals of that amendment permitted. And following that, of course, the local municipalities will then have the job of updating their official plans. Some have gone through the process recently, some are going through the process, like Napanee, for example. But all municipalities will be required to update their OPs to ensure it conforms with the new county plan. So that's the end of my presentation, members of council, and as mentioned at the outset, Mr. Lottie and myself would be happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. McDonald. I'll turn to council for questions on the presentation specifically. Councillor Wise.
Yes, thank you, Warden. In no particular order, I just had a few little notes here. One minor one that I noticed near the end was there's a reference made to petroleum resources, and I wonder what that actually means.
It's a great question. There are petroleum resources mapped by the province. I believe there are a few areas in the center of the county. These resource areas have the same policy protections as mineral aggregates, which is sand and gravel and bedrock. And what they require is that municipalities show these areas on maps, and essentially means that whenever someone's making an application to do something in those areas, like a subdivision or a consent, they have to consider the implications of that development on the ability to extract those petroleum resources in the future. It's a request made by the province, and we've been adding it into official plans across the province as a consequence. So
I thought it was maybe a question of terminology. I thought this must mean storage tanks for oil, but there's actual potential of oil or gas development somewhere in the county?
That's correct. That is correct.
I'm amazed.
I was a little amazed as well, but because we didn't show it the last time around, and the request wasn't made. But there are areas, they also identify abandoned wells as well too. So abandoned wells are also shown that may have been used for petroleum purposes many, many moons ago, and there are records of that, and we do have to show them on our mapping.
Of course, that's very interesting. May I? Thank you. Was the land designated for removal from the Greater Napanee settlement area? That's roughly 1,400 hectares, I believe. Was that included in the Lear study evaluation process? Maybe Anna could tell me that.
In the growth study, yeah. So the growth study identified numbers for all municipalities and target like growth numbers that we should reach. It was identified as part of the growth study. So Napanee has actually been working on this for quite a number of years, and they did a lot of consultation with landowners all around, and then kind of came up with a first draft. Then that brought that to the county and the ministry, and from there it kind of was further refined based on the provincial planning direction that you can't really have an oversupply of land in your urban areas. So that kind of further refined it to more closely match the numbers that were recommended by the growth study.
And so I guess what I'm getting at, though, I did say Lear study, and I'm wondering, since that was still included in, and is still included in Napanee's land supply, I'm assuming some of it is potentially agricultural land. Would the Lear study have looked at that, or will it wait to look at that until this is officially designated as rural or whatever it would be rezoned to?
So the Lear study did and is currently looking at it.
Okay.
So we had our maps show both of the boundaries, so the current boundary that's existing now and the one that's recommended through this official plan amendment. So you can kind of see where those changes are being made and where the lands are proposed to be removed or in some cases added as prime agriculture.
Great, thank you very much. And on the NH2 woodland designation, it says no negative impact test is required. Could one of you sort of give me an example of what that would mean if there was some question about land use or anything in an NH2 designated area? What this designation actually means from a practical standpoint.
So I can start, and perhaps Anna can add to this as well. The no negative impact test has long been a policy of the provincial government and is very entrenched in every official plan, including the existing Lennox and Addington official plan. But the devil is always in the details with these kinds of things, and what does no negative impact mean? So there's two components to looking at no negative impact. One is to the feature itself in terms of removals. So are you removing a significant proportion of the feature? And if you are, that would typically be considered a negative impact. But certainly the amount you remove has a lot to do with the size of the feature in the first place. So if you're taking out 1% of that feature, it probably wouldn't be a no negative impact, but at some point a threshold is reached and you do have an impact. The second component, which is a little more subjective, is on the function of the feature itself. So if we're dealing with a significant woodland, significant woodlands are home to wildlife habitat, all kinds of habitat and all kinds of mammals. And the more you affect that woodland, the more of an impact you have on the function of that woodland as the home for all of those features or mammals and birds and so on. So it becomes an exercise of determining the threshold beyond which the feature would be degraded to a point where it does not have the same functions as it did before the application or proposal was made. The local municipalities are very familiar with the no negative impact tests, and it's very well understood. There are many opinions, for sure, around a table sometimes on when that negative impact test threshold has been met, but it's something we're very familiar with.
Through you, Mr. Warden, so a practical example, if someone submits a planning application, typically what it would look like is they would hire a consultant to do a study to evaluate this, if there was a negative impact or not. Most of the time, these studies come back with some sort of recommendations that need to be implemented as part of the approval for like a minor variance or consent or anything like that.
Thank you, and I'm almost done if you'll indulge me further.
Go
So when you compare the NH1 designation with the NH2, what sort of further restrictions or considerations would be involved in an NH1 designation?
So the NH1 designation, sorry,
No, go ahead,
Anna,
Nick.
So that's okay. The NH1 designation is a no-touch designation, essentially. It identifies solely to provincially significant wetlands and provincially significant coastal wetlands. And the rules at the province are that no development or site alteration is permitted within those areas. So that contrasts the policy approach with NH2 areas where development is potentially permitted subject to meeting the no negative impact test. And that's why there's a difference between the two.
And I think I'm done, Mr. Warden. Let me just check my notes here. And I guess finally, in terms of specific application, the zoning bylaw will now have to reflect these OP changes, is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Warden. So first, the local municipalities will have to update their official plans, and then their zoning has to match their official plans. Yeah. Zoning doesn't really have much to do with the county, so the way that it works is county OP gets adopted and approved, then local OP follows, then eventually their zoning bylaw will have to reflect what their OP says.
Sure, thank you. Thanks very much, Nick and Anna. Thanks, Mr. Warden.
Of course. Other members of council? Seeing none, there is a recommendation in the report to adopt official plan amendment number 3. I will read that out simply because this is an important document, of course. Obviously, it's to note and receive the report, and that council consider the bylaw for OPA number 3 and the County of Lennox and Addington official plan amendment number 3 as attached to it as Appendix A. And further, that once the bylaw has passed 3 readings and the OPA number 3 is formally adopted, council directs staff to move to forward the County of Lennox and Addington official plan amendment number 3 to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs for their final approval and adoption. And further, that council directs staff to advise the county's lower tier municipalities of the adoption as presented at the March 18th, 2026 council meeting. What are council's wishes? That is the recommendation. Councillor Wise moves the recommendation. Is there a seconder? Councillor Richardson. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. McDonald and Ms. Gelati. We now move to our second presentation this evening, Ms. Skelton, who is going to present the Transportation Master Plan.
Good evening, and thank you for having me here. I'm Vanessa Skelton. I'm a traffic engineer, and I work for GHD, who was contracted by the county to prepare the Transportation Master Plan update. The Master Plan update process started in early 2025 and is now coming to completion. So today I'm going to present to you the Transportation Master Plan, as well as information about the economic evaluation that was completed as part of the plan, and a review of winter road maintenance, again as part of the Transportation Master Plan, followed by any questions that you might have. So just to give a little overview of what is a Transportation Master Plan, it's a long-term plan that covers 20 years of expected changes in the transportation network in an area, in this case, County of Lennox and Addington. It looks at the multimodal transportation network, so that is walking, cycling, and driving. It's guided by the county's strategic priorities, vision, and objectives, and it tries to synchronize the transportation planning with the broader community goals. It also follows the municipal class environmental assessment and covers phases 1 and 2 of a Class EA. So the first thing that we developed in the master plan was a vision statement as well as objectives. And the Transportation Master Plan intends to help residents live their best life in the County of Lennox and Addington by guiding responsible transportation infrastructure investments that deliver a safe transportation network, by increasing travel options for a diverse range of users and trip types. This follows a general process and the general advancement of recognizing that there are more than just cars on our roads. So we're trying to move toward zero roadway fatalities, and we measure that through a revision of the collision patterns. We're trying to provide additional transportation options to move away from the car-centric type of viewpoint, and also to reduce traffic-related stress for both drivers and pedestrians. And the way we intend to do that is to try to increase space for modes. So the master plan document was divided into 6 key sections. The first is the purpose of the master plan and an introduction, then a review of the existing multimodal transportation network, followed by a section about consultation that we had public, agency, and Indigenous consultation. Then we looked at assessing the needs and opportunities within the county to deliver improvements to the transportation system. And finally, setting out the infrastructure and programming recommendations that were then summarized in terms of implementation timing. So in order to look at the opportunities, we used various existing sources of information. The official plan that we just had a review of was an important input to our transportation master plan, as well as the growth analysis that was mentioned in the official plan update. So we also used those 2 documents to help us plan for transportation. We also looked at growth happening in the constituent municipalities, as well as in the city of Kingston, who has a large influence on commuting traffic. And specifically, there were 2 developments in the western part of Kingston. So the former Clogs Road Business Park is intended to be moved further west, nearer to the boundary with Loyalist Township, as well as a proposed hospital complex near the Gardeners Road interchange that will affect travel patterns in the county. So in order to determine what the needs are and to see what the opportunities could be, we took a look at traffic operations and safety needs with a view of also considering safety in all of our assessments. We wanted to look at the active transportation network, and particularly cycling facilities that are more of a key factor on the county roads. We also looked at truck traffic, also called heavy vehicles, in the urban areas. And as mentioned before about the economic evaluation, there was consideration for the review of development charges. Recommendations were prepared, and they're listed according to the timeline for implementation. Also, we prepared cost estimates to be used as a benchmark for planning and prioritization. And then we grouped them together by different types. So whether they were infrastructure, programming recommendations, additional studies, So here we are looking at the infrastructure projects that were recommended in the Transportation Master Plan. So the different timelines have colors in the far left column, and these are listed in order from most expensive to least expensive. There are a couple listed on here that I'd like to highlight, which were the extension of County Road 23, which is a study that, or Taylor Kidd Boulevard, a study that was done about 20 years ago, and it's continued to be on the list of projects for the county. And the other one is with regard to County Road 2 and County Road 6 intersection upgrades, and also a review of growth within the Odessa neighborhood. So this is the list of studies that were recommended, again, in order from most expensive to least expensive, with color coding depending on their implementation timeline. And again, I have a couple here to highlight. One which is to undertake an environmental assessment for addressing capacity issues in Odessa. So there are a number of large subdivision developments that are on the books in this area, and as well as the Kingston projects that I mentioned, which will probably drive growth in Loyalist Township, and also employment in those areas in Kingston could result in increased growth in Loyalist Township around the Odessa area. The other one is to undertake a development charges background study to help the county pay for this growth-driven infrastructure. So these are the programs and policies that we have recommended. There's a couple that I wanted to highlight. One which is to develop a guideline for roundabout design check package. Roundabouts are becoming more prevalent, and establishing a policy for this will help the county have the designs reviewed. Also, to amend the road functional classification policy. This is whether a road is considered an arterial or a collector, and it has different implications as to how it's labeled, as well as the typical cross sections and minimum right-of-way requirements for county roads. A few recommendations were carried over from the previous TMP, one of which is to have another TMP update in about 5 to 10 years. So this is always on the list of recommendations, so it's always going to be carried forward. The other one is to perform a regular network screening of collisions, so you can highlight areas for action. And the last one is related to emergency detour routes, or EDRs, and to install folding stop signs at that location. Otherwise, the recommendations from the previous master plan have all been applied or have become redundant due to various other roadworks. So just a few more words about the extension of County Road 23, or Taylor-Kidd Boulevard. This is the plan from the class environmental assessment that was completed about 20 years ago, and it's been moving forward through the county's process since, with some property acquisition and design. So at this point, it's becoming closer to being needed because of development that is happening in Bath, as well as it provides a good connection from the west via County Road 22 to County Road 4, and hopefully can assist with keeping the truck traffic out of Bath and along these more arterial roads. The next one that I had mentioned was the Odessa area, County Road 2 and County Road 6 intersection review. So we looked at several different types of intersection improvements, whether it's a roundabout with these slip lanes, additional lanes at a signalized intersection, or a 2-lane roundabout. So based on the various components of growth that I had mentioned, it's really going to be determined what type of intersection should be recommended based on those growth projections. So on the other picture is a suggestion for various routes around the built-up area of Odessa, because as the growth starts to sort of expand from the center area, more road connections are needed to help move traffic through the area. So the functional road classifications that I talked about are whether it's an arterial, a rural collector, or an urban collector. Previously, the Transportation Master Plan indicated 5 separate categories for roadways, and we've suggested simplifying it by having 3. An arterial road is really intended for moving traffic across areas at a higher speed, and hence direct property access is discouraged. And this would be reflected in the entrance policy for the county. Again, these are our recommendations, and there may be an opportunity in the future to amend the entrance policy based on these suggestions. So the rural collector has 60 to 80 kilometers per hour, and entrances are tolerated, but certainly not wanted as much as for an urban collector, as it sounds like. It's more for urban areas where you're expecting to have more road access permits. So these are the cross sections that go together with the different types of roads. So in the arterial one, you would have a paved shoulder, and then the green area would be a ditch or a swale, and the potential for either having a multi-use path, which is the blue area, or a sidewalk, which is the pink area. And this all depends on available right-of-way and also whether it connects up to other facilities. The urban collector would have bicycle lanes and potential for parking. It doesn't mean you need to have parking everywhere. A gap between the parking and the cycling, a curb, and then sidewalks. And again, this depends on the right-of-way available, and you might not have every single one of these elements in the cross-section. For the rural collectors, we provided two options, one which has a multi-use path, and the other which has a sidewalk on one side and cycling lanes. So the multi-use path, again, is separated from the roadway by a ditch or a swale, and this, again, depends on what availability of space there is when designing. This is not suggesting that all existing roads need to match these cross sections, but it's really a guide for building new roads or when roads are being upgraded. So the roundabout design check package is a good idea, considering that roundabouts are becoming more prevalent within the county, within Eastern Ontario, and in the province. The design of roundabouts is also evolving as fast as we are implementing them. So what we were designing even 10 years ago has changed because of new concepts that we have been able to put together. So having a roundabout design check package will provide the county with the best design that they can for implementation. So we're suggesting that you have 3 levels of roundabout designers qualified, depending on how many roundabouts you have designed in the past. So a level 1 would be capable of designing single lane roundabouts, someone with a level 2, 2-lane roundabouts, or bypass lanes in roundabouts, and the level 3 would be really for complex roundabout designs. So the objective that's being suggested is that by qualifying certain designers, the county will have a more consistent approach to roundabout design, ensuring conformity with current best practices and design parameters. The economic evaluation was undertaken as an appendix to the Transportation Master Plan. There were certain recommendations regarding funding. So various sources of funding were considered to fund these projects. Property taxes, reserve funds, user fees, grants, long-term debt financing, and development charges. Following the analysis that was completed, it was recommended that property taxes only be used after all other sources of income are maximized, and that the county continue with their good effort with grants to keep abreast of programs that are available to fund these. Furthermore, it was recommended to undertake a development charges background study to help fund the capital infrastructure costs associated with the transportation needs over the next 20 years. I'm going to pass to winter road maintenance, which was also an appendix to the Transportation Master Plan. So we performed an initial review of winter road maintenance across the county. This was intended to be the start of an ongoing discussion. It is not the end all or be all. It doesn't provide recommendations that must be acted upon, but it did provide some view of how things are going. So we looked at different areas of practice by looking at the different data, identified opportunities for further investigation, and have suggestions regarding refining standardization of practices, reporting, and service delivery. There were various challenges in this review in that there was a great variability in maintenance costs, both between year to year, because it's dependent on the weather, and between lower tier municipalities. So there was a little bit of challenge conducting the financial planning or reconcile spending because of the different practices. So this is a review of delivery efficiency by doing a benchmarking. In other words, comparison between what's happening in the county to other locations. So we looked at some local municipalities, upper tier or cities to compare to. So that's Kingston, Belleville, Lanark, and Leeds and Grenville. This is in the chart here, where you can see spending by year per lane kilometer, so that we're looking at a direct comparison. And then we also looked at some more provincial peers, which were all happened to be in the GTA. So we found that the median for the local peers was fairly close to the county average, whereas the provincial peers were more expensive. We also looked at a methodology to review the adjusted costs. So again, this is reviewing efficiency by using an adjusted cost proportionality. So the closer to 1, it means that the county and the township are more similar. And we also looked at the same classes of roads. So a class 4 would be compared to a class 4 and a class 3 to a class 3. So through this, we found that there was fairly consistent ratios for operators and equipment, but when we looked at the material costs, there was a higher degree of variability, which perhaps suggests a difference in maintenance strategies across the municipalities. So again, that's one of the areas to look further into. Then we looked at delivery efficiency by comparing similar roads, one a county road and one a township road, in each of the municipalities where we had similarities. So in this case, again, the closer to 1 is the more comparable. When ratios are greater than 1, it means that the municipality is using more input per kilometer than would be expected. So there is the opportunity here also to delve into this use of material a little bit more. So our recommendations on this component with regard to operator hours is to collect timekeeping and payroll records to be able to better analyze staffing patterns and overtime and storm-related peaks. With regard to material usage, it would be to look at salt and liquid application policies, the calibration records and route sheets, and then compare them to the TAC and OGRA guidelines to look at whether there's efficiencies to be had somewhere. To review the snow removal and disposal practices, so how frequent they are and also the unit cost of snow hauling and disposal, perhaps mapping the disposal sites to try to find some transportation efficiencies there. In terms of general ledger codes, it would be extremely helpful to standardize the general ledger coding across the municipalities to be able to better compare. In terms of service review, to undertake a structured update of documented service standards, which would incorporate current operating practices. These were last updated in 2012, and so it's probably time to look at these again. So that's my presentation. Thank you. And I'm here for any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Skelton. I'll turn to council. Questions? Councillor Richardson, and I'll come.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Warden. Thank you, ma'am. With respect to consultation, was the consultation done with the lower tier governments or the lower tier staffs with respect to this traffic management plan or master plan?
Yes, so we had internal and external consultation, the external being the public, the agencies, and the Indigenous groups, whereas internal would have been with the planning or road staff.
Okay, thank you. This this master plan is replacing, and you may not be able to answer this, is replacing the 2014 master plan that we have. Am I correct with that?
That is correct.
Okay. And I guess at this point, those are the only, I mean, it's a fairly extensive document, the document that we're going to be requested to authorize this evening. And I'll be quite honest with you, it's the first time I've seen it. And I mean, obviously, I have some concerns with, first of all, the EDR, second of all, with respect to, I think on page 8 and on page 10, right at the bottom of the charts, where it states, just let me find it here for you, ma'am. Right at the bottom of the chart with respect to policies, undertake jurisdictional transfer of Jim McKimmett Boulevard and County Road 1. It became painfully obvious that the infrastructure in the town of Greater Napanee just isn't sufficient for east or for north-south traffic, and it was driven home yesterday when there was a closure on the 401, and it was extremely gridlock for a period of time, and that happens every time there's a problem, let's say, on the 401. So I guess the concerns I have is I don't think there's been enough review of either the EDR or the increased roadway infrastructure, but I'll deal with that through the next thing. But that's my concerns with respect to that on page 10, as well as where it states on page 8, construct new roads in Napanee, cost-sharing developers 15 to 20 years. I'm not sure exactly what that means, other than the fact that it's going to be dependent on the developers as opposed to dependent on us for that infrastructure to help relieve some of the gridlock that we have here.
So the construct new roads in Napanee, there was a municipal class EA that was completed maybe about 2 years ago that followed on recommendations from the previous transportation master plan, yes, to alleviate the traffic on County Road 41. So there's 3 new roads that are planned, one which would be a north-south connector from Cherrywood Parkway straight up, cross over the railroad tracks and the water course, and then meet up with Jim Kimmett. So that's one of them. The other one is to go from Belleville Road or County Road 1 across to Alkenbrack. And the third one is just above Richmond Park Drive. So the reason why it says depending on development is because these are growth-driven projects. So as more houses are built, then we'll be needing the new roads. So if the developers don't come and build no houses, we can't say build it in 5 years, because maybe growth won't happen, but maybe lots of growth will happen, and then we will need to build it in 5 years. So it was hard to really give it a fixed time frame. I mean, we did put it in long term because we're fairly certain that that it will occur in that time frame, but it certainly could be sooner.
Great, thank you, ma'am. I guess my concern is it's not really addressing the growth that's happening now. Is where my concern is, because there is, and I thank you for bringing those routes up, because those are very, very important routes to the health and safety of our municipality. But this plan doesn't seem to be addressing the growth that's actually happening now, or the growth that's actually on the books, and that would be part of my concern. So, but thank you for stating that. Thank you, Mr. Ward.
I know our director would like to contribute to that question, Councillor, so go ahead, Mr. Wager.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Warden. So we have been in communication with town staff regarding the EA, and essentially county staff, if you recall, brought a staff report to council looking for direction to purchase property in advance of the development of those roads. The direction at time to staff was to wait and let the developer develop those roads. So that when those roads are developed, like, we will be in discussion with town staff. I've already reached out to Michael Nobes to discuss Jim Kimmett Boulevard potentially becoming a county road. It is currently the current EDR, and it does connect County Road 1 to County Road 41, and with the traffic volumes would meet the criteria and definition of a county road, which as part of this transportation master plan, Vanessa has recommended that we define our policy for that, which will encompass Jim Kimmett Boulevard. In addition to the other, the road, the east-west road connection from County Road 1, in that, I'll call it the Napanee Bypass EA, going to Alkenbrack Street and then continuing on Industrial Boulevard. I spoke with Vanessa earlier today, actually, and town staff that would be anticipated as the true EDR, east-west through the town of Greater Napanee, once that's developed, and looking at a time frame for that. So there's two separate parts that kind of work independently. So as the transportation master plan works on growth related, the EA study, which also works on growth related, but it's kind of separate from the transportation master plan as far as a specific project, because the EA has already been completed for that small area of Greater Napanee, where the transportation master plan looks at the entire county of Lennox and Addington. But I do foresee that the existing growth that you've mentioned in the west part of Napanee will be a driving factor, and we may have to come back to council looking to advance those road sections in the future. Not 15 to 20 years, but maybe 5 to 10 years from now, we should be looking at those roads again.
Thank you, sir, and I appreciate that, because I think it's going to be sooner than later. And so when I see the 15 to 20 years, I just think that's going to be too late right now. And it's where it's going to be completely painfully obvious is this summer or next summer when we start doing some work on Center Street. I mean, that's the heart and soul of the municipality as far as north-south traffic into town. And for an extended period of time, that roadway is going to be under construction, so there won't be a pass through there. So it's going to cause unbelievable gridlock through that area. And we can hope that there's nothing else that happens along the 401. But knowing the way the 401 has been of recent, I can only anticipate that it will be the perfect storm, I guess, is what I'm afraid of. And there's going to be a complete and utter shutdown of the urban area, the town of Greater Napanee. So it's refreshing to hear that the 15 to 20 years may not be 15 to 20 years, but I would hope that it's closer to the 5 years. But again, that's just my opinion. So thank you, Mr. Warden. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Fritsch, you had one, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Calver.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Warden. Vanessa, I had a question on the section here on winter road maintenance. When you get into the area of this delivery efficiency, I just had a question on a term that was in there, just to make sure I understand it correctly. When you're looking at materials, down at the bottom you have liquid and pre-wet. Is the definition of liquid, is it?
I'm going to look to Chris to answer that one.
Yes, through you, Mr. Warden. So liquid would be the DLA, or direct liquid application. So that's the salt brine or the calcium chloride that's sprayed on the roads prior to an event, which we've been using for the last, I believe, 4 years now. Pre-wet is calcium, like it's calcium chloride or liquid calcium that is mixed with containers on the vehicles, and as the salt and sand is put on the roadways, then the liquid calcium is then added to it as well. It allows us to reduce our bulk salt usage, and it also then creates like a liquid, so the sand adheres to the road better, so it doesn't blow off with the higher volume traffic.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted that to be clarified. May I ask us just a second question? So on the winter maintenance, it's probably a question for Chris. Has the TAC committee seen this report? Have they looked at it and commented on it?
Yeah, so again, which kind of furthers Councillor Richardson's question. The TAC committee, so members from each municipality started with the creation of the RFP, the review of the award of the consultants, the public consultation materials, comments at the draft plan, and then the final plan prior to coming to council, and provided comments throughout the process.
So it's for both the transportation part of it and the winter maintenance part of it? They've commented on both?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I could just add that we had a specific meeting just for the winter maintenance component, which was reviewed generally the same material that you're seeing right now, but a little bit longer because we had more time.
Councillor Calver, did you have a question?
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. I was hoping to see in this master plan to see a little bit more accommodations for more trails, like walking trails, cycling trails, that sort of thing. I love the layout you've got here for the rural collector and so on and so forth, and it lists the width of the road and whatnot. That's a great idea, but I was kind of hoping to see maybe this would be a good place to put a trail, or that would be a good place to put a trail, but I didn't see that in there, so that's fine. The other thing I guess I got is back to the EDR. We can beat EDR routes to the nines, but how are we going to keep people following them? Because what's happening now is they're not following, and if you had to even try to go anywhere yesterday in town, I mean, they were coming in from 33 Highway, they were coming in from Palace Road, they were coming in from every side street, everywhere. Like, you couldn't even move in Napanee. It didn't matter where you were. It was just absolutely ridiculous. I know we have an EDR route, but not everybody follows EDR route. And I'm just trying to figure out, like, we talked earlier there about the, the cross lanes in the 401, which would keep everybody on the 401, and we should, I guess, get talking to the province a little bit harder about that, because this is only going to continue. I mean, yesterday was absolutely, term's been used as the perfect storm, but I mean, at one point there was just no room to move in Napanee. It was just truck after truck. So, but just a question if we can figure out a way to try to keep people to follow the EDR. Thank you.
Mr. Wager?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Warden, if I can add a comment to that may help Councillor Calver's concern. So there's a group of county roads managers and directors that we meet 3 or 4 times a year. Our next meeting is at the upcoming OGRA conference in Toronto. This problem with the EDR affects primarily the Eastern Ontario and rural communities such as ourselves. So that cost group drafted a letter, actually went to EOWC, supported by EOWC. Our view and opinion is if the Highway Traffic Act can be changed so that when there's an accident on the 401 and commercial traffic have to detour onto local roads, that they remain on the officiated and signed EDR routes. Because it's not the vehicles and the cars that are causing the issue. It's the commercial vehicles that are going through our roads, and actually a lot of our seasonal load restriction roads. So the incident on Monday, we had 2 EDRs on the 401, and County Road 5 was our busiest road, east-west, and this was the worst time of the year to have an EDR on that road because it just lost another year or 2 in its life in a matter of a day because of the traffic on that. So we're trying as a group as hard as we can to make the EDRs more like officially an EDR. But at the end of the day, the current legislation in place is like if there's a road, a truck can go there unless it's seasonally restricted. But during an EDR, all the offices are occupied with the collision, with the vehicle, trying to get cleaned up, trying to get everything back on track. Municipal staff don't have the authority to block or stop traffic, and unfortunately, commercial vehicles just use their GPS, and go where the shortest path and the quickest path is. We are also we have Transnomus, which is links into Municipal 511. So during an EDR, we upload and say, local vehicle only, so then it stops, Waze and all of the GPS apps that are out there, hopefully to not direct traffic across those roads. But once one goes one way because they know where to go, that they all follow like sheep, and it's unfortunate. But again, we're trying to do what we can do at the provincial level because we think that the fixes needs to be done there.
Thank you.
Councillor Richardson?
Just to add to that, Chris, I think a functioning EDR will alleviate a lot of that problem. The problem being is when you don't have the functioning EDR and the traffic stop for extended period of times, you get people who get impatient and then they start looking for their own way. If we had something that was functional and where the traffic was, even if it's crawling, if it's moving, I think that would alleviate a lot of those problems because, what we saw yesterday was the traffic stopped for 5 or 10 or 15 minutes on Industrial. People started making U-turns and started pulling out and going down other streets, and then all of a sudden they got down a street where they couldn't get out of, or they went up Center Street where it just didn't fit, and it just compounds the problem. So I think that's, at least in my humble opinion, is the importance of having a functional EDR would alleviate a lot of those problems. And again, the town of Greater Napanee, we just can't funnel 3 or 6 lanes of traffic through a municipality that was built 170 years ago. It just isn't working. So we've got to find some other way of doing it, whether it's to get outside the urban area. We've, again, blessed with the geography we have here, but we've got a railway, we've got a river, we've got a lot of cool things that every municipality wants, but it complicates it as far as providing easy access to a route to allow the traffic to get out of. So, but I think if we had some form of a functioning EDR that was fairly straight and fairly not hindered by a lot of other traffic, I think it would alleviate a lot of the things that we saw yesterday. So, anyways, just my personal opinion. Thank you, Mr. Warden.
Others, questions on the presentation? So there is a recommendation in the report to receive and note the presentation and report and to approve the master plan update as presented this evening. What are council's wishes? Deputy Warden.
So moved.
Motion to receive and adopt the recommendation. Is there a seconder? Councillor Wise. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I would like to see, because this is the first time I think that many of us have saw this report, and the report that's attached is 194 pages. In my humble opinion, at least I would be quite happy that if we could put this over till the next meeting so that we could delve and peel back some of the layers on it. I would be much more happier if we did that. I don't think there's any time constraints on this. I think that the last traffic master plan was done in 2014, so we're already 12 years into it, so I don't think there's any real hurry to have to do this evening. So I would suggest that we put it over and allow some of us to peel back some of the layers with respect to this report, because it's going to be around a long time by the sounds of it, 20 years. I mean, if we do check it every 5, but it's a plan that's going to be around for a long time. I just want to make sure we get it right.
Okay, Councillor Richardson. I'll turn to the mover.
I'm just going to ask a question. Were you proposing that as an amendment?
If you would accept it as an amendment, I would propose it as an amendment, Deputy Warden.
I'll accept that as an amendment.
Which would essentially be a motion to defer.
Until next meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll for procedural certitude, you can withdraw the first motion.
Okay.
And then if you want to put forward now a motion to defer.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Yes, I'll withdraw my motion and make a motion to defer until the next county council meeting.
Perfect. Councilor Richardson, would you second that? Discussion
Sorry,
on,
I will second that, yes.
excellent, thank you. Discussion on that motion. Then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Matters for consideration. The first one, the collaborative decision-making agreement for the OHT, and I'm going to turn to the CAO.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So, as council is aware, we have an OHT, and Dr. Morrison presented to council just before Christmas to give you an update on what they've been doing. They have been working on how they're going to lead the organization, and they've come up with a new version of their collaborative decision-making agreement. I'm happy to say that it does provide the County of Lennox and Addington with a seat on the collaborative decision-making group. You recall in the past we were sharing a seat potentially with Frontenac, and both wardens for Frontenac and LNA were guests on their board, or on this CDMA. Very happy, we're both very happy in Frontenac and LNA to see that we have individual seats along with the City of Kingston, and it's just there for your approval for the warden to be able to sign the agreement. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Yeah, Councilor Wise.
Yes, this is welcome after all our concern over the years. The turning point seemed to come at one point. We had a retreat a couple of years ago, and I just started working the room, and I couldn't find any objection really to having both counties and the city. It seemed to disappear, and I'm hoping that helped pave the way. What I like a little clarification on is where we are at in terms of our voice in decision-making that directly involves our services and our budgets. Are there two different levels of governance here? I'm sorry, I wasn't able to read this in enough detail. What's your assessment of that, Brenda?
The partners who are participating in a project that requires funding from the partners have a voice in the rollout of those programs. But right now, for any of our services that would be connected to OHT, they have working groups, like for long-term care, for paramedic services, essentially our community paramedics, and with social services. So our staff participate on those committees when they have them. Some are more active than others, but there's none that have actual projects that involve funding or money of any kind. It's really just been consultation as it evolves over time. I think the vision for Ontario Health Teams was eventually they would deal potentially with budget money of some kind, but that's not at that point. Yeah. So it's really just the partnerships that folks like Angela, Pam, or I think it's Paul Osborne from the Community Paramedics participates on just on working groups to give input and feedback.
Okay.
But the agreement is very clear, though. If you're safer pay, if you are doing a project where you're contributing money, you have a say in that project. So I like that wording that's in there. And I just really like the fact that it's been recognized that both counties need to have seats, because both counties have different levels of service and different departments that they provide, and they need to be, as elected officials, you would want your warden to have a say in what impacts on ratepayers in your own counties. So we really appreciate the fact that both LNA and Frontenac have seats at the table.
Yeah, this is a major step, and it's encouraging. This is so much a work in progress.
Yes.
This whole idea all across the province, and sometimes I wonder if it'll ever come to practical fruition, but I remain open-minded, and thanks for your continued work with this group, Nathan. I know it sometimes requires a lot of concentration when they're not talking about anything that has to do with us, but you want to be there just in case. So, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Wise. Agreed. Others? So the recommendation is to note and receive and authorize myself to sign the collaborative decision-making agreement. What are council's wishes? Councillor Wise moves. Councillor Davison seconds. Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay. Now come to the big ticket item of Alto High-Speed Rail. And Mr. Paul has conveniently absconded this evening, so Ms. Gelati is going to be in the hot seat, so over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I'm just going to give a brief overview just to make sure we all know kind of what the project is about. So the Alto project is a proposed high-speed rail line that will connect Toronto to Quebec City with trains reaching up to 300 kilometers, a speed of 300 kilometers per hour. It's a federally led project, and they're currently in route selection and consultation phase, and construction is expected to begin around 2029 or later. So the decisions that are being made kind of right now determine where the line goes. So there's two main options, a northern route and a southern route. So the southern route is kind of what will affect the county the most. So the key takeaway is that the county is not considered a destination, but a corridor. This means that the train would pass through at a high speed and not stop. At this time, staff are not aware of confirmed plans for a station or a stop at Kingston either, so it would just go right through. So this creates a situation where we could experience significant impacts without receiving that many benefits. So the staff report highlights a number of important concerns, so I won't touch on all of them, but some of the main ones include like loss of prime agricultural land, environmental considerations, and loss of natural heritage features, and then impacts to individual property owners as well. So depending on where the kind of final alignment lies, there could also be land acquisition and expropriation. Even properties that aren't directly affected by the rail line could see impacts, potentially related to access or proximity, or even property values. There's also on-the-ground considerations, so how the rail line could affect roads and access that we kind of just heard about. Because the high-speed rail requires a full grade separation, there would be no level crossings, which could result in further like road closures, rerouting, changes to emergency response routes. Doesn't really affect us that much. That being said, this is a federally funded project. Municipalities do not have the authority to approve or deny a route or require them to conform to planning policies. We do have an important role in providing input and advocating for local interests, so the feedback that the county provides at this stage does have to be considered by Alto, and they have to bring that back as part of the federal decision-making process. In terms of kind of timing, again, they're just evaluating potential corridors, and they've been doing consultation all over the area. So kind of right now is the time to let your voice be heard on what you want them to kind of know before any decisions are made. That being said, staff don't have any really more information that is what is being provided to the public, but I'd be happy to try and answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Ms. Gelati. I'll turn to Councillor Wise first. Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Warden, and thank you, Anna, and Stephen, and anyone involved in preparing this report on fairly short notice as a result of my notice of motion in the last meeting. This project or proposed project has generated more comment and concern than any other issue in recent years in my township, and I suspect in some others, certainly in neighboring townships in both Hastings and Frontenac. It's difficult for a proponent to approach a community in any regard. If they come in with detailed plans, they'll be accused of having made up their minds already. If they take Alto's approach, which is to come in with a very general high-level concept, they'll be accused of not having any details. So to that extent, I can sympathize with those who are doing the consulting for this project. We did have a representative come to our council meeting, and it was notable how little information there was. It was just proposed as almost, gee whiz, we'll have a really fast train, won't that be great? And council's response was, yeah, I guess, if you've got a lot of money and you're living in one of 7 places. That's who it's good for. And the more we listened to residents, the more we heard fear because of expropriation potential. And it was confirmed to me quite recently that the Minister of Transport wants to establish a specific track route this year, exactly where those tracks are going to go. And when asked in committee when expropriation would start, he said immediately. And that isn't just for the Montreal to Ottawa route, which is supposedly going to be constructed first, it's for the entire route. So we could be looking at, by 2027, local expropriations for a track that might not be laid down for 20 years in our area. So that, along with many other concerns, which will affect things like emergency service routes if north-south roads are cut off, environmental concerns for wildlife habitat, concerns for drainage. I'm sure all of us have read to varying degrees the details of what could happen. And again, we don't know what the specific plan is, so we have to operate on the assumption that some of the concerns that Mr. Paul has identified in his report might in fact turn out to be genuine risks. As a result, I have crafted, with help of staff, whittling down these concerns without going into a lot of detail, a sort of whereas and therefore motion, which I'll read. Whereas Alto is asking for comment on high-speed train routes while providing very little specific information. And whereas both the proposed northern and southern routes cross agricultural and rural properties, homes and businesses, affect public services, roads, and environmentally sensitive areas that would be negatively impacted by expropriation and disruption. And whereas the emissions reductions of an electric train could take decades to be realized due to the significant emissions released in the construction process and embedded in the materials used, and whereas the residents of Lennox and Addington County will have no practical access to the train service itself, therefore be it resolved that the Council of the County of Lennox and Addington oppose both the proposed northern and southern Alto routes for high-speed rail through Eastern Ontario. And I would make that a motion.
Okay, I will take that motion. Is there a seconder for the motion? And we can discuss. Councillor Fritsch? Okay, discussion. Councillor Fritsch.
Yes, through you, Mr. Warden, and thank you, Councillor Wise, for crafting that proposal. And I won't go over all the reasons why our municipality does not support the project. They're very similar to others. We have submitted also a brief to the Alto project as well that has a lot more detail in it than a resolution that we had recently crafted. I certainly, Addington's would support this resolution with an addition, and the addition that is being proposed would be that it'd be at near the end of that resolution, and that further that we oppose the Alto project as it does not appear to be an economically viable project as proposed, and believe it would be better positioned as an improved passenger rail service generally along current rail corridors and where it would be viable to connect numerous other urban areas in the future where the most growth will evolve over the next century. That's kind of an excerpt out of the Township of Addington Highlands resolution that's actually also contained in the meeting agenda later on.
So are you making that as a friendly amendment
As a friendly amendment
to the resolution?
Yes.
Do you consider that friendly, Councillor Wise?
Yeah, I'm agreeable to that, and it puts a positive spin on it as well, and other councils and certainly many groups have suggested the same thing. If you look at 60 to 90 billion, which we know will vastly inflate if this goes ahead, if you take a fraction of that and put it into the existing rail corridor that is 2 CN rail freight lines that VIA is forced to use or can only use when it's available, and added a VIA line, it would address a lot of these concerns, and as Tony mentions, it would serve a lot more communities. So I'm happy to include that amendment to the motion.
Okay, very well. So discussion on the resolution as amended. Yeah, Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I don't mean to make light of this, but this whole Alto thing, at first glance, would appear to be something that a couple of guys with a box of beer around a campfire on a Saturday night dreamed up. It's a really good idea, and I don't want to minimize the fact that the nation-building aspect of this is very important. So we got to be very cautious not to throw the baby out with the bathwater here. The rollout of it probably has a lot to be desired. I was going to ask Anna if she actually knows what the mandate of Alto is, but I won't ask you because I know you probably don't, and I know that I don't. But we do have to be cautious that transportation in this country is going to be very integral over the next 10 or 15 or 20 years. I just wish that there may have been a little more thought gone into the rollout of this concept, as opposed to putting maps out with vast amount of property that will be conceivably expropriated. I think there's probably people, very smart people that are involved in this that could have done that a little bit better, but that's at least my rudimentary thoughts on this without knowing all the details of this whole concept. So more of a statement than anything. Thank you, Mr. Ward.
No, I appreciate that, Councillor Richardson. Deputy Warden.
Thank you. I'm not going to reiterate all the points that have already been made. I agree with them all. And the one is, we all recognize, as been said, the rail system does need to be improved. The fact that you sit in a lay-by waiting for a very large freight train to pass while you're late to make it to a function that you were going to in Toronto, that does need to improve. I think there are other ways to improve it besides spending $90+ billion for a train that doesn't make a stop really in Eastern Ontario. So I think there needs to be a lot more thought, and that was a good analogy. I think it needs to have a lot more thought, and because no matter what happens or where it goes or what expansions are done, people will be impacted. So to just draw a line on a map and think it's a really good idea, it needs to have a lot more thought and input put into it. And I know just yesterday there was an endorsement of it following the 401. That's a whole nother bailiwick of problems. If you drive down the 401, where's most of your built-up lands? Where will the most expropriations happen? And in some cases, where's the most prime agricultural property? So it doesn't matter where it goes, there's going to be hurdles, but it needs to be a lot better plan than what has been presented to us so far.
Councillor Fritsch.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and some great comments. And one of the items that was discussed certainly at Addington Highlands Council when we were deliberating it was the idea of growth, of obviously very supportive of a passenger rail, that method of travel. Obviously, it's a great thing, and many countries are way advanced, much further advanced than our country is. But try to position that and think about it so that you have room for expansion, and the expansion and additional stops or additional I'm going to say rails, widening of that, adding additional tracks, makes sense, and it's going to be in areas where you can pick up the growth areas of urban expansion. When you run it through, I don't know if it's 600 kilometers of wilderness that has growth predictions of, 1% a year. I don't know the exact numbers. We just can't get our heads around how that makes sense. You have no ability to expand that rail system through vast chunks of it as proposed. It would never be. We've asked Alto. They said there would never be expansion. It would never be viable to expand it and have additional stops because there are no population centers in those areas. So, just a comment.
Others? I would just add to Councillor Wise's point, I have had an extensive amount of correspondence as warden, hoping that the county would take a position. I would say in my time in municipal politics, which is short compared to some of the more seasoned members around this table, I haven't had as much correspondence on a single issue as I have about this, and so I appreciate all the comments made. I think, to Councillor Richardson's point, it's important to talk these things out to frame how we're thinking about it, and I think it's important to acknowledge those who have expressed concerns that it's not simple NIMBYism. It's legitimate concerns about all the things that we don't know as much as anything else. And I think that I want to thank Councillor Wise for first of all, bringing forward the notice of motion so that we could actually get this on the floor and discuss it. And then also to Council for discussing it, because I think it is important, and I think that that people are looking to all local governments around Eastern Ontario to take a position and to respond, meaningfully. And I think based on the discussion that we've had tonight, we have responded meaningfully. So my thanks to all members of council for the comments made. So with that, I will call the question on the resolution. All those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. I also do need a motion to receive the report, though, as well. Councillor Davison, seconded by Councillor Calver. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Fitch. I did not see you in.
I haven't, no addition receiving it, so that's fine with that. There were some actions in there that were considered, that are proposed, since they proposed by staff, whether at the end of their report, whether we consider we want them to participate in consultation opportunities, monitor the project, advocate for rural infrastructure considerations.
Yeah. Do you want to come back to the microphone, Ms. Giletti, to answer that?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Warden. I think staff is just looking for direction from council on how you want staff to kind of proceed. If you would like us to submit anything on behalf of, council, or if you would like for us to reach out to Alto and see if they'll come here and do a consultation, or kind of we're looking for a direction from all of you on kind of how you would like staff to move forward.
Councillor Fitch, you have some ideas?
Well, I think for starters, there's a couple things right directly associated with this proposed Alto project that I believe we should do at a county level. One is make a submission, which is really participate in consultation opportunities. The first one is the county should make a submission. You have the basis for one right there, and that we should continue monitoring the progress of this project. The third one in here is a little related to rural infrastructure in general. So
that was 1, 2, and what was the third one?
The third one here is The third one is advocate for rural infrastructure considerations. This doesn't directly relate to the Alto project. It's kind of a more broader statement. In many ways, we already do a lot of that, I believe. So
mainly
I'm
just
fine
wanted
with the
to-
first two.
With the first two?
Yes.
So what I would ask you to do then, Councillor Fritsch, as a subsequent motion to the receipt of the report, which we've already passed, if you want to do a subsequent motion to direct staff to participate in consultation opportunities and monitor the Alto project.
I'll make that motion.
So moved. Seconded by Councillor Calver. Discussion on that motion. Councillor Wise.
Would that include submitting the staff report to the various appropriate recipients, Alto, the federal minister, MPs, MPPs, along with the original motion that I made and Tony seconded? That would all go out to the usual recipients?
I'm looking to staff, but yes, I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
Fine then.
Okay. With that, I'll call the question on that motion then. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay. We come to Naturally LNA Activation Program. Mr. Plumley.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. In 2026, $40,000 in funding is available from our Economic Development Operating Budget for the Naturally LNA Activation Program. This funding is divided equally between the partner municipalities and supports tourism events, products, and experiences in Lennox and Addington. Up to $4,000 is available per project, with an additional 25% that is used by our office to promote the event or experience through our Naturally LNA social media channels. We launched this application process on January 15th with the goal of supporting projects that are unique in nature and that will help improve our LNA County communities. There's an open intake period for these applications, and funding will be distributed until there is none left to distribute. Our selection committee are members of the Economic Development Commission. They met late in February and have recommended the 6 projects that are included in the report for your approval. If these applications are approved, the activation program balance per municipality would be $7,500 for Greater Napanee projects, $5,000 for Loyalist Township projects, $5,625 for Stone Mills, and $6,250 for Addington Highlands. I would be happy to answer any questions about the program and the applications that have been brought forward so far.
Thank you, sir. Any questions on the report? Councillor Hook.
Just a comment, Mr. Warden. I've had the pleasure over the years of participating in many of the events that have been funded by the LNA Activation Fund, and I can safely say that they really do help attract a wider audience to the events, and they're very welcome, and I think they're very important to communities. I know they certainly are in Addington Highlands, so I would make a motion to support the report and support the recommendation.
So moved. Thank you, Councillor Hook. Seconded by Deputy Warden. Further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Council remuneration and expenses. I'll turn to Mr. Day.
Through you, Mr. Warden. Before you is the annual report that's required under the Municipal Act to show the 2025 Council remuneration and expenses report. And I'm happy to answer any questions if Council has any.
Questions for Mr. Day? Recommendation is to note and receive. Councillor Fritsch moves, seconded by Councillor Davison. Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Public sector salary disclosure.
Through you, Mr. Warden, excuse me, as required under the Public Sector Salary Disclosure Act, before you is a list of employees that have made over 100,000. I do want to make one correction on a position and one title. The Assistant Manager of Nursing, her title is the Food Services Supervisor, so that will be corrected. I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Any questions on the Sunshine List report? Councillor Wise?
Move receipt.
Move to note and receive, seconded by Councillor Calver. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Budget summary. Back to you, Mr. Day.
To you, Mr. Warden. This is to finalize our budget meetings from February. All the adjustments that council agreed to have been inputted into the budget document that was presented in February 11th meeting. So overall, you can see the executive summary highlight in the report, looking at $40.4 million in taxation revenue, represents a net increase of $1.7 million or 4.6. And the two major items on that is an increase from 2.5% to 3% of the prior year's levy for infrastructure projects. And a good chunk of the levy increase relates to the JMPC helping the municipal support of our home for the county. I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have. Further on in the report are the bylaws that propose for the tax ratios and the tax rates.
Yes, thank you. This is just for information, but are there questions on the report? I would take a motion to note and receive. Councillor Calver, seconded by Councillor Hook. Further discussion? Yep, Councillor Calver. Oh, nope. Oh, he had his hand up. He was ready to go. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Municipal Housing Infrastructure Program. Mr. Wagger.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Warden. This is a staff report where staff's asking council to authorize the warden and CEO to enter into an agreement with the town of Greater Napanee on a partnership program through the HEX funding, for the MHIP funding, which is the Health and Safety Water Stream, and it's for the reconstruction of Center Street. 73% of the project of combined total cost between the county and Greater Napanee will be funded by the funding program, and the remaining percentage of the cost is required for the municipalities. And the agreement basically states that the funding will be distributed based on the cost associated with each municipalities. So I believe it's right around 34.5% of the cost right now is for the county, and the rest is for the town of Greater Napanee due to their additional streets, and then the water main and sanitary sewer upgrades that they're planning to undertake on Princess Street. Be happy to answer any questions should council have any.
Thanks, Mr. Wagger. Questions? We do have a recommendation. Is there a mover? What are council's wishes? Councilor Calver?
I recommend we adopt and move forward.
Excellent. Seconded by Councilor Richardson. Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Transitional housing.
Thank you, through you, Warden. So before you is a report on transitional housing, and the purpose of the report is actually twofold. First, and most importantly, we just wanted to share why transitional housing is such a critical part of our housing continuum, and why it's our most successful tool we have to help end chronic homelessness. Since our launch, and this is in the report, we have helped 44 individuals successfully secure housing and move from homelessness to permanent housing, and that's a huge success for our community of our size. As a matter of fact, other municipalities are reaching out to us and asking for us to do presentations and to understand what we're doing and why we are having the success we're having. So that's kudos to our staff for the success we're having. But some of the main reasons are in your report, but mostly it is the daily supports and commitment from our staff and our community partners who do help the individuals move through plans towards self-sufficiency. And so we have a variety of housing options as well, so that we try to make sure it's the best fit for individuals to try to ensure that they have the most success. The individuals that we place in transitional housing are those who are willing to engage and want to move forward. And we do have house rules. We do have cameras and surveillance to help us with the safety aspect, and we really work on empowering the individuals. And most of our residents that currently are living in transitional housing are living very successfully independently. And as with any program, we continue to evolve and learn and try to improve our program as we move along. And one example of that is that we have some individuals who have expressed, although they may not be quite ready for employment, have expressed wishing to do some volunteerism. So our staff are working, and with our community partners, are working on connecting these individuals to some volunteer opportunities. And it's been working really well. And as you can imagine, when you feel like a sense of belonging and connected to your community and the ability to give back, it's very empowering, and great things happen, and great things are happening with these individuals. So I guess I also want to just acknowledge the hard work of our staff, and transitional housing is just one program of the many supports that we offer, and our staff every day work very hard, and it's a hard job. They hear a lot of sad stories, and they work very, very hard every day to support the individuals that come to us in their time of need. And if we can't help them because it's not within our mandate, we connect them to other services. So I just wanted to also acknowledge the hard work of our staff, and that's part of our success. Also, the second part of the report is just to share with you a report that we shared with our Prince Edward Lennox and Addington Social Services Committee regarding the costs if we were to staff a transitional housing 24/7. And I just wanted to highlight that our current model does not require 24/7 supervision, because we are finding great success and they are able to live independently. But happy to answer any questions. If there's I have asked Scott Robertson, who is our manager of housing and homelessness, to attend, as he's the subject matter expert on this. So if there's any specific questions that I'm unable to answer, between us, we can happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. I'll turn to council for questions on the report. Yep, Councillor Hook.
I'm sure most of us attended, if not all of us, attended the homelessness session. And it was made very clear to us that transitional housing does work. And the concern I had, not concern but question, the model that is used now that staff are checking in with the residents, I don't know how many hours a day, but this is quite a big change by employing 10 people full-time with a cost of $864,000. And I'm just wondering, when I look at that cost, which is going to result in about a 2 to 3% county levy increase for 8 people, not that the 8 people are not important, but I mean, that's $125,000 per year per person over 3 to 4 years. And I just wonder if there was a different model somewhere in between where, and I understand you can't have one person on staff, you have to have 2, but could there be some kind of flexibility, so rather than having those people work full-time and spending close to $900,000 somewhere in the middle to kind of decrease the cost, or on the other hand, use that same money to help, instead of helping 8 people, you could help 16. So that was my concern. I just kind of, when I look at the cost, I just thought, wow, that's a big change.
Yeah, Councillor, I'm going to turn to Ms. Kent to clarify
Sure,
the
yeah,
point
so
about what's actually been proposed and what was just reported to the committee.
Great. Thank you, through you, Warden. So our current model does not have the 24/7 supervision. So it's just our existing staff who are, they attend the building every day to check in, and that's costing us approximately $5,600 per person. If we were to move to a 24/7 model, which was, there was a suggestion at the forum for us to cost what that would look like, that's when it would be around the $116,000 per person. But we're not currently operating that model.
I'm going to turn to the CAO.
Sorry, just for further clarification, because I know some councillors are on the Palace Committee and some are not. So this was a request from that session that we had on October 1st for staff to just look at it. Could you ballpark what the cost would be if it was 24/7? And bring that back to the Pellis Committee. So that was just a report for information that went to the Pellis Committee. That was not staff suggesting that it be done. Staff, I think, I won't want to put words in Pam's mouth, but they find what they're currently doing very successful because it gives the individual in the home, and you'll say this better than me, but a sense of independence and growth versus, I'll let you define that, but it's not being suggested that it be considered. It's just Pellis. It was a staff report for information for Pellis to consider if they ever wanted to go down that road in the future. But it was not something voted on by Pellis, yay or nay. It was just an information exercise.
Yeah, Councillor Hook.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Ms. Kent, did you want to add any further comments to that?
No, that's good. That is correct. It was just for information and we do feel that our current model is very successful. We're finding great success. The individuals are able to make some great strides and don't need. I guess there was a thought that perhaps that some of the more harder to serve individuals might be better served if we had the 24/7, but not. Transitional housing isn't going to work for everyone because they have to be willing to engage in supports. And so even if we had a 24/7 model, or if that was suggested, it still may not serve everybody because it may not meet everyone's needs.
Thank you, Ms. Kent. Councillor Fritsch, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Richardson.
Yes, through you, Mr. Warden. A comment and then maybe a question that could perhaps, or Scott can answer it. Just to put it in perspective, I may have the numbers wrong. What is it? How many people, is it 33 or 35? How many are in transitional housing in total?
So we currently have 33 in LNA and another 8 or 9 in Prince Edward County.
Okay, thank you. And then because I know some folks aren't suited for it, when you do have problems with the people that are willing to go in there and want to work their way through that program, is it possible just to provide just a couple examples of where you do run into an issue and what you do about it? You may have brought counsel, you may have provided some of that information before, but just to refresh us. So when you do run into an issue, obviously it has to be dealt with. Is there a couple examples of where you would take some significant action with someone?
Yeah, through you, through the warden. And Scott, I'll ask you to jump in with the specific examples, but certainly if something arises, we address the behavior and we help them to make better decisions. We would empower them to, an example I'm going to use is somebody is wanting to stay in their unit because it's a friend who, and they remember what it was like when they were on the street and they want to help them out. But we try to explain to them how that if that friend stays and their behavior is not appropriate, that could jeopardize their tenancy. So we really work on encouraging them to limit and we do have a curfew actually for 10 p.m. for guests. That's 11, okay. Yeah, but you probably have more specific examples of.
I'm not wearing my glasses. All right, thank you. Thank you for the question. Yes, so Councillor Fritsch, to you and the rest of council, we do unfortunately have problems. I think we've had to remove 24 people from the program. They operate under an occupancy agreement, so we like to give them a week or 5 days before they have to move, but there's been a couple that have moved like the same day. We had one unfortunate gentleman that lasted 8 hours in our program, and that was it. We have a few people that are back for a second time with us where it didn't work out the first time, and we've got, I think, 2 people that are on their third time with us. Now, when they come back to us, we say, one example was a person, we told them they needed to be actively engaged in addictions treatment and mental health counseling. And they did that for 6 months and demonstrated a few other things to us. So we allowed them to have another opportunity. Something that's happening in Napanee is unhoused people are seeing their formerly unhoused friends end their homelessness and get a place to live. And they come in like, how do I get what Gary's got? And some of these people were homeless and unhoused with these folks for like 4 years, and they see their peers being successful. And it's a big motivator, one that we couldn't put in a larger place, or because they wouldn't know everybody, but they know people because they're from here.
Thank you. Thanks for the examples. Yeah, I know it's challenging. We all understand that, but the intent of the program, and it has some good results of people getting through it at a cost, I guess, that we can afford.
It is our most successful program that we have to solve homelessness for chronically unhoused people. The people moving in have been on the streets for sometimes like 5-6 years. So,
Councillor Richardson?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I'm going to build on what Councillor Hook had said earlier, is that I know that we were all at the summit and had conversations there, and the number one thing that came out of that summit, and we had a lot of people there, a lot of people that were engaged in trying to rectify this, was the number one thing was that we felt that these transitional houses, for all the good work that they do, really should be staffed in some form or other. Now, I know that there's conversations whether it's 24 hours or not, but I really don't want to lose the momentum that we gained on that, because we got to keep in mind that these are the folks that are moving in from living rough to a place that has 4 walls. So they're the most vulnerable people, most vulnerable citizens of our community, who ultimately require the most support. And I think that if there's some form of on-site staffing, be it whether it's 24 hours, be it 12 hours, and I like Councillor Hook for mentioning that, it's got to be a benefit to those folks. And we got to keep in mind too that there's other people within the community that are living next door, across the street, down the road, that would be very supportive of having some form of a staff member at that facility. So what I would suggest is that rather than just note and receive this report this evening with respect to staffing, that it be forwarded to our budget process. And I know that our budget process is going into probably the next term of council, but be forwarded to our budget process to be assessed with a number of options, whether it be at 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, be it 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, some form of support that is going to be on site. And again, I don't want to minimize what staff is doing now, but we just got to keep in mind that these folks are the most vulnerable. These folks are the ones that need the more support. And I think that, it's difficult to try and put a price on that. So that would be my suggestion, that it be forwarded to the next budget process with a number of options as to how we can staff, if possible, these transitional houses. Thank you, Mr. Ward.
Thank you for that, Councillor Richardson. So what would need to happen procedurally is that would need to go as a recommendation to the Pellis Committee to look at other staffing options, and then that would go through that process. So in terms of trying to achieve what you are looking to achieve, I'm looking to the clerk here, it would be, we need to note and receive the report either way, but then direct to request the Pellis Committee to look at, consider further staffing options for transitional housing. Is that?
And I thank you for that, Mr. Warden. I mean, ultimately, it's going to come back to the group that are sitting around the table this evening, because there's going to be a cost associated to it. So, I mean, we can't deny the fact that the county council is the service providers for this. So I don't disagree with having input from the Pellis Committee, but ultimately it's going to come back to us to make that decision. So being the service managers with respect to this. So I don't disagree with you that if we should bring our Pellis partners in to see if they can come up with some form of resolution. But again, ultimately it's going to come back to us. So.
Okay, I'm going to turn to the CAO.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Just to make sure we're all clear, so it's Pellis's duty and responsibility to disseminate provincial grant funding to deal with homelessness. That's the function for which they exist. So that's why it needs to go back to Pellis, because they disseminate the provincial homelessness grant funding that pays for these things. And we don't have any authority over those grant funds at all. It's Pellis that has that sole responsibility, not us, not you guys as a county council.
So, but either way, Councillor Richardson, I take the point that you want further for Pellis to look into this. So can I look to you to make that motion then?
Yes, Mr. Warden, I'll make that motion to note and receive, and then I'm sure Madam Clerk can help me out with the specific wording, so I'm sure she's much more eloquent at it than I am, so I think she gets the gist, though.
For sure. Would you care to read that out, Madam Clerk, that additional part?
Sure. That County Council requests that the Pellis Committee consider staffing models for transitional housing.
Seconded by Councillor Hook. Further discussion on that motion? Yeah, Councillor Weiss.
Yeah, and I'm glad Terry raised that point. What we have is the existing situation, which is working well for a lot of people and isn't working so well for some others for a whole variety of reasons, but perhaps some of those others could be helped by a greater staff presence. And what we've been presented with is sort of, I won't call it the other extreme, but a full staffing model, which, as Ken pointed out, is very expensive. Maybe there's something in between. I think that's kind of what Terry's getting at. I want to be clear. I want to make that clear that that's what we're talking about, so that there is some compromise there that we could look at, and I think that's a good idea. So I support that motion.
Thanks, Councillor Wise. Others on the motion? Again, I just want to thank the Pellis staff for all their work. I mean, 44 people solving homelessness for 44 people is significant. So again, thank you to Pellis for all your work, and thank you for the constructive suggestion, Councillor Richardson. So with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, extension of long-term care home service accountability agreement.
Thank you.
Ms. Malcolm.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Warden. So this is a one-year extension. I do see a typo in the last sentence of the recommendation where it says integrated. It's not interrail. It's definitely not that. Has nothing to do with that. So it is integrated inter-RI reporting system. So this is simply a one-year extension and then a change in the system of how we are collecting our data. So it's no longer through our RI MDS, it's now through inter-RI. So that's the only changes. And this would be so that the warden and the CAO can sign off on this notice of extension.
Thanks, Ms. Malcolm. Questions on the report? Seeing none, there is a recommendation to note and receive and authorize myself and the CAO to sign the agreement. Councillor Fritsch, so moved. Seconded by Councillor Davison. Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. LSAA Declaration of Compliance. Ms. Malcolm.
Through you again, Mr. Warden. This is again for the warden to sign the declaration for the period of January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2025, which confirms, to the best of your knowledge, that I have completed all of the submissions, been financially responsible, and submitted all quality indicators that were required through that time period.
Thank you, Ms. Malcolm. Questions on the report? Recommendation is to note and receive and authorize myself to sign the declaration. Councillor Wise, seconded by Deputy Warden. Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Advisory Committee recommendations and reports. To TAC.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Through you, I don't have anything to add or highlight, but I'm happy to answer any questions should council have any.
Any questions? Yes, Councillor Wise.
I have no questions, but I have to say this was the most dramatic and riveting TAC report I've ever read. I'm serious. I woke right up. I worked my way through a lot of things on this agenda, but holy smokes, what you've been going through with this EDR situation. I'd only sort of heard a little bit, and I couldn't follow it all, but boy, I wish you and the town of Greater Napanee luck with resolving this one. It's quite a schmozzle.
Duly noted, indeed. Others? Then can I get a motion to note and receive? Then Councillor Calver, seconded by Councillor Davison. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And the compliance report for JMPC. Ms. Malcolm.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Warden. So you will notice that this month and then moving forward, this will be a significantly shorter report while we're going through the transition to Inter-RAI. So Inter-RAI requires that we have foundational data that is going in right now. It will be completed at the end of this month. And then it requires 2 more sets of quarters in order to actually have reliable data that we can benchmark and analyze and know what we're doing. So at this point in time, we're reliant on audits, we're reliant on surveys and our best practice guidelines that we're implementing. So a whole raft of indicators that are still being measured, we're not able to track them as thoroughly and consistently as we have historically been. And that's simply just the move from RAI MDS to Inter-RAI. You will see that we did have 27 residents move into the home in January and February. We currently have our 4th cohort of the PSW Living Classrooms. We currently have 19 students in the class. They will be graduating in May, June. We did have Ministry of Labor was in, and they conducted 2 inspections on some recent outbreaks that we had where there was staff involvement. So some staff became ill and were connected to our outbreaks. So there was no findings from that. So that was very good to see. And you will see that we've already had this year 7 outbreaks in the home, which is a lot for the Parrott Center. I can't honestly tell you when we last had an enteric. To the degree that we had it. So it was these were significant outbreaks, and we continue to have a low compliance from staff and for both flu shot and COVID vaccinations, which is not surprising and not atypical from across the entire healthcare sector. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Malcolm on the compliance report? Seeing none, can I get a motion to note and receive? Councillor Davison, seconded by Councillor Calver. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Now to the activity reports. Admin services.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have nothing to add, but I do believe the clerk would like to speak to the date for the event with Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Yes.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Warden. So the LNA clerks have planned this candidate session for April 16th. We have been made aware today. Thank you to Councillor Calver for letting us know that the LNA Chamber of Commerce are having their gala awards night that night. So there will be a conflict. So we're dealing with our representative from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs to see if we can reschedule.
Yeah, Councillor Carver?
Thank you, through your warden. Really, it's not much of a conflict. I mean, anybody that's already been in municipal politics, we got a good idea how it's working, but it's always good to go for a refresher too. So if it can be changed, that's great. If it can't, well, it is what it is. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Carver. Any further questions for the CAO on admin services? Seeing none, we'll move to financial services. Mr. Day.
Through you, Mr. Warden, I have nothing further to add or highlight, but happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Any questions for Mr. Day? Then we move to community and development services. If there's any, Mr. Lally can answer them.
Yeah, I'm mostly here just to answer any questions about the Lear study if you have any. I can't really speak to anything else in the report, but happy to answer any of those questions. Any questions for Mr. Laddie? None, thank you. We're going to jump back to social services. Ms. Kent?
Thank you, through Mr. Warden. The only thing I'd actually want to highlight is just wanted to acknowledge our staff, Carrie Kippen, who is retiring at the end of March. So I just wanted to thank her for all of her dedication to helping with supporting quality early learning and childcare. So happy to answer any other questions you have.
Thanks, Ms. Kent. Any questions for social services? Okay, skipping back down now to long-term care.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Warden. This is just to highlight our successful accreditation. This was a tremendous amount of work across the entire home and all of the departments, inclusive of the departments here that support the Parrott Center. And so we were really happy to receive this top award that was for 3 years. We have completed the recommendations. They were simply recommendations, and we have already completed them. The formal risk management plan was just basically to bring everything together that we already are doing and put it into one document. And then the second was to expand on the cultural competency and diversity and inclusion plan that the county already has, which was done for staff, and this was just to expand that to include our resident and families. So the last thing I would just like to highlight is that we are super pleased that Janice Barker, who's a registered nurse at the Parrott Center, was successful in being chosen by Wounds Care Canada to have a fully funded seat in their program. And that is a huge testament to her, her dedication to the home, and we're really happy for her.
Thank you, Ms. Malcolm. Questions on long-term care? We move on to emergency services.
Nothing to add, but happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Any questions for the chief? Seeing none, HR.
I don't have anything to add or highlight in the report, but I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Any questions for Ms. McGarvey? Very well. Infrastructure services. Mr. Wager.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Warden. I do have some highlights and some questions, so I might be a minute, and I apologize because it is a late night. So first off, under roads and bridges, I want to highlight that IPAC was the low bid and was recommended by staff for the award of our hot mix paving program, which came in approximately $1.5 million below our budgeted price. They are very competitive in the area and getting a lot of work, so we look forward to working with them. This does raise a question, part of the transportation master plan. If you recall in the presentation, one of the items was to undertake an EA for the capacity issues in Odessa, estimated at $400,000. Staff can bring back a report next month, but with the delay of the adoption of the transportation master plan, which this is recommended in the transportation master plan, can I bring a report to council requesting the work done? Because it will affect our Odessa reconstruction and Loyalist if it is delayed. And I got thinking of that during the council meeting. And we're working with Loyalist Township to upgrade the water and sewer there. And the EA for the Odessa looks at the County Road 2 and County Road 6 intersection. improvements there, which is planned for 2028. And if we don't start that within the next month or two, then that'll have to be delayed until 2029 or later.
Do you want to say that then? Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Chair. If council approves, we could put them on the agenda and just do the plan first and then that item second on the agenda. So that way council has considered the transportation master plan first, and that way it's not holding you up for yet another month.
Perfect. Thank you. And then I'd also like to highlight, staff have started to complete our road condition assessments. We do those every 2 years. I will point out that the county has experienced 2 hard winters recently. And with no frost in the ground, when you get a lot of snow adjacent to your roadways, all the frost is in your roadways. The roads take a beating, especially our surface treated roads. I mentioned County Road 5 earlier. Due to that, we've started those earlier to look at those roadways, and we've had to make some changes based on the condition rating, because we've lost some of the roads, like from the preservation treatment to we have to now just wait a year or two and then we'll have to reconstruct them. So if I can just go over the budget, the 2026 budget, the changes that was presented to council. County Road 15 was a preservation 1. It's changed to a preservation 2. Which is a good thing because it can take the microsurface. It's holding up well. County Road 25, which was preservation 1, is going to be delayed until 2028 in the plan capital. And it's recommended for reconstruction now due to the damage on that road. Similar to County Road 29 in Addington Highlands, it was planned for a single surface. It's now going to be delayed until 2027, again, planning a full reconstruction due to the condition of that road. And then to help offset costs, so we still kind of meet the target that council has already approved, we're adding County Road 27 from Hunt Road to County Road 14, which it's moving forward by a year just because it's damaged as well, but we can still preserve it. And if we don't preserve it, we may have to delay it to reconstruction if we get another hard winter this fall. So just to summarize, the proposed budget by council when they approve it in the bylaw was $2.24 million. The revised changes does lower that to $2.1 million. So there is a little bit of savings there. I'm not recommending to change the actual budget amount. Any savings will just be put back into reserves at the end of the year. And under property services, I'd like to welcome Al Green to the team. He's a new member of our maintenance team. Happy to answer any questions should council have any.
Thanks, Mr. Weger. Councilor Calver.
Thank you, through your word. Mr. Weger, what about County Road 9? I know I've talked to you about the failing there, but is that going to be looked after this year?
So County Road 9, as presented, doesn't change. So the works from Fitchett Road around to east of Kaiser's, like the S corners there, where the S corners east of Kaiser, that works will remain, and that's preservation 1 with reprofiling. The works that were completed last year, we've noticed some pop-outs on that road. There's some extensive granular loss, and we do have a meeting with the contractor, which we expect will be warranted, and a portion of that road, or most of it, will be redone by the contractor under warranty issues.
Okay, thank you, because I notice we always go with the the cheapest or lowest contractor, and I know everybody's got a warranty, but why should we have to be going through warranty? Maybe we should be looking at other contractors, maybe a little higher up, higher end contractors. Maybe we won't have to do the warranties. It's just food for thought. Thank you.
Councilor Wise.
Yes, thank you, Warden. So the work on 27, Chris, from Hunt Road to basically Croydon, is that doing another surface treatment, or I sort of missed what you were proposing there?
Yeah, so it is moving. There's north of the Mouse Hole or the CP rail crossing there's some damage to that road, heavy due to the freeze thaw. as well as just loss of stone loss. So we are recommending just a single surface, so it's the Preservation 1 strategy. It was planned for next year, but we're moving it ahead due to the condition, and then to offset some of the delays that we're doing this year so that we basically maintain our budget so we don't have to expend more money in the future.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Wager? Very well. Can I get a motion to receive the activity reports as one? Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor Hook. All those in favor? Motion is carried. We come to resolutions. So there are several with respect to the Alto high-speed train. Council does not have to follow my recommendation, but my recommendation would be to receive them en masse for information since we've passed our own resolution this evening, but I will turn to council with their wishes. Councillor Wise.
Receive and report those resolutions.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you did say report, but I assumed what you meant. Councillor Fritsch, you second that? Okay. Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. 2, Bill 21, Protect Our Food Act. What are council's wishes with respect to this? Councillor Hook.
Motion to receive and support.
Motion to receive and support. Is there a seconder for that motion? Deputy Warden. Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And Kingston Health Sciences Center. What are council's wishes? Councillor Fritsch.
Motion to receive and support.
Motion to receive and support, seconded by Councillor Davison. Further discussion. Councillor Wise?
Where does that project stand? Are they still looking for funding for this hospital, or what does our support mean other than just nominal support?
Through you, Mr. Warden, I'm
Do you wanna
not sure where they, if we have more information on to the regard, then please go ahead.
Well, and do you want to mention how much we currently fund?
For the South Region, yeah, so 1.4 million, yeah, for the health unit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did I get a mover and seconder for that? Yes, I did. Further discussion on that. Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Matters for information. Is there anything anybody would like to discuss? Councillor Davison.
Number 3, I would just think that we should support it. It goes along with the other motions. It's Alto high-speed rail.
I don't think there's an actual resolution contained therein. I think that's why it wasn't put with the others. Am I correct? Yeah. Yeah. Sorry about that. Anything else anybody likes to discuss? Councillor Wise.
I'll just move receipt of the matters for information.
I'll take that motion. Is there a seconder? Yep. Councillor Calver. Any further discussion on those matters for information? Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Are there any statements by members this evening? Are there any notices of motion this evening? Are there any matters of urgency? Then we come to our bylaws. The first is the official plan amendment, 3 readings. Can I get a mover? Councillor Wise, seconded by Councillor Fritsch. Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. The 2026 tax ratios. Can I get a mover for that? Councillor Hook, seconded by Councillor Davison. Further discussion? Yeah. Deputy Warden.
I support the motion. I'm just sort of bringing it up now in leading up to next year's discussions of budget, I think I'd like to see us take a little bit of a look at this and just see if we are proportioning correctly with new multi-res and things like that, where it can be an incentive to try and get more housing in a denser population. I'm just throwing that out just as food for thought over the next year, that's all.
Duly noted. Thank you, Deputy. Other discussion on the tax ratios bylaw? And I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And the 2026 tax rates bylaw. Councillor Wise, seconded by Deputy Warden. Discussion. Call the question. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And a confirmation of proceedings, 3 readings. Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor Hook. All those in favor? Motion is carried. And can I get a motion to adjourn? Councillor Wise has his hand right up there.
Just leave it up.
Seconded by Deputy Warden. All those in favor? Motion is carried. We are adjourned at 8:54.